I'm going to be introducing the new VitalStim Plus device to you. VitalStim Plus is a major improvement over the device that we are used to, the VitalStim device. It is still a handheld device, but we have added features that we feel the clinical professionals are going to be very happy with. So let me introduce them to you, highlight what is the same and what is different from what you're familiar with. First of all, the device itself has a variety of items on the front that jump out. These are fairly simple and fairly straightforward, fairly intuitive. There is the on-off button right here, with which you turn the device on and off, obviously. Then there's the home button. Pressing that button will bring the software back to the home screen that you see displayed here at the moment. There's the start-pause button. The start-pause button will initiate the treatment, but also interrupt it whenever needed because of patient adjustment, electrode adjustment, whatever. Pressing it again will then initiate the treatment after having paused it. Pressing the stop button stops the treatment altogether. It's important to recognize the difference between a pause and a stop. The unit has a feature of data collection. The data that gets recorded and analyzed and reported on afterwards is only that data during which the machine is not in pause and only after start has been pressed. So it is the active treatment time between start and stop, excluding the paused moments in between. Then there's the return button on the screen, which will take you back one screen. Then there's the folder button right here, which takes you to the ancillary items on the device that will assist both patient and clinician in doing the treatment right. For example, anatomy pictures, videos, etc. And I'll show you an example of that in a moment. Down here are the intensity buttons, increase and decrease intensity. One thing that jumps out immediately is that there are 4 channels, as opposed to the standard 2 channels that exist on the VitalStim handheld device. The reason for additional channels is because of a scenario that has been encountered many times by clinicians, and that is, for example, needing to place 2 electrodes on both sides of the face in order to facilitate the oropharyngeal sling, and a set of electrodes down here in the throat over the thyrohyoid muscle, for example, in order to facilitate thyrohyoid approximation. The combo requires 3 pairs of electrodes. Well, previously with the device that we have, that was not possible. Now that is possible. And I'll show you a couple of other examples where that comes in really handy. Another thing that is visible here is that each channel has a unique color code. The color corresponds to the color of the lead wire and corresponds to the color of the port where you connect the lead wire to the device. This is useful because sometimes when the patient is all wrapped up, you're not too sure which channel you're dealing with, so the color coding assists somewhat in that. Then here on the side of the device, there is a unique little port that holds a micro SD card. The micro SD card is in order to, number 1, upgrade the device when an upgrade is available, and number 2, capture patient information if you wish to save that data, that treatment data. On the other side of the device, on the back of the device, you will see a speaker port. The speaker allows for the unit to display both sounds for biofeedback and instructions and audio for the played videos. At the top of the device, you see the ports that I just referenced. There's the 4 ports that are the access ports for the channels. And then in the middle, there are 2 other ports. One is the reference port for the reference electrode to be used during surface EMG. And the other one is the remote control. With the remote control, you can activate a feature that again is not present on the handheld. It's a more timed intervention for the patient to swallow when the stimulation is on and then manually interrupt the stimulation when the swallow is not being trained. So that's more or less what we've got in terms of hardware of the device. Let's turn it on and see what's going on inside of the device. We've got a stylus right here with which you can operate the software, or you can use your finger. It is a pressure-sensitive screen, so the nail works slightly better than the pad of the finger, but both of them will work. The stylus works the best. There's a little port on the side of this stand here that will hold it. And there's a soft area and a hard area. Both will work on the screen. The soft area will avoid it, obviously, from scratching. You will see here the standard VitalStim name. When pressing on VitalStim, it activates the VitalStim mode, which is exactly what the handheld VitalStim device delivers today. The same parameters, the same phase duration, the same everything, the same duty cycle, and the same time at which it starts, 60 minutes. The one thing that is different on here is that you can change this time. By pressing on 60 minutes, you can actually decrease or increase the time. So on the regular VitalStim device, it's only 60 minutes and that's it. Here you can edit that. Once you're happy with the selection, just press the check mark and you're done. The other features here, which probably most clinicians will use once every now and then, but not very often, is the top one, electrode placements. You will find here the standard electrode placements that are taught during the course, and it can be a useful refresher for the clinician that needs it. Pressing the back button will take you back a screen and you can explore all the various placements this way. So I'm going to press the back button twice or once in order to get back to this screen. Now at this point I'm ready to start treatment. All I need to do is select the channels with which I'm going to work and then increase the intensity exactly the same way as I would have on a standard VitalStim device. So that is it for VitalStim. Very basic, very straightforward. If I were to increase now, the stimulation would start and I would hit start, pause. Eventually the machine would start recording the treatment session, how much intensity is delivered, how long it is delivered for, and what protocol was used. After running out the time, it would then summarize all the treatment, or I hit pause and then the treatment is stopped. Okay, so enough of that for the basic VitalStim approach. One of the better features, advanced features of VitalStim Plus is the ability to change the parameters on the VitalStim waveform. You might, for example, want to deal with a patient or have to deal with a patient who is a little bit hyperactive, hypersensitive, and freaking out a bit at the current intensity. You therefore could, if you wanted to, decrease the phase duration and make it more comfortable. You can do that in VMS mode. So let me show you. Pressing on VMS will bring up this screen with set protocols. Right now it says custom protocol, but as soon as you get in, as I'll show you, you can edit the parameters and then save that protocol as a specific protocol you might use often. At which point you return to this screen in the future, you'll see your protocol there just to access and it's ready to go. So let's show you what is all possible in there. Within this mode, you see the same screen we saw earlier in VitalStim, the same green screen. However, we can now edit the settings by pressing on this gear icon. That brings up the parameters I can set. This protocol name allows me to name it whatever I want to, the protocol. This mode button, the channel mode button, allows me to deliver the current in 3 different ways. I can deliver it like this in co-contract mode, meaning each channel delivers the same amount of stimulation at the same time, and it stops at the same time, and it resumes at the same time in 1, 2, 3, or 4 channels, all at the same time. Or I can change the mode to reciprocal. In reciprocal mode, channel 1 and or channel 3 start. They then go down to 0, and channel 2 and 4 start and continue until they go down to 0, and channel 1 starts again. I can introduce a rest period in there as well if I wanted to. So in other words, I can now introduce a sequence of stimulation. For example, I could start the stimulation up here, and after a certain amount of time make the stimulation down here start, and then have that followed by a rest break. That could go in sequence with the patient's swallowing activity. So that would be reciprocal mode. The third channel mode is continuous. In continuous mode, the electricity keeps running non-stop. This is the mode that will be used in manual setting, where when I press the button, the stimulation will run. When I release the button, the stimulation will stop. So the pause is determined 100% by the user. So let's put this in co-contract mode and show you the other settings. I have the phase duration, which I just referenced. 300 microseconds right now, but I can change that downwards. So I could put that, for example, as I'm doing right now, at 180 microseconds or thereabouts. This is now a very comfortable setting. Below that, I have the frequency. 80 pulses per second is the standard for VitalStim. It is a frequency that works well for fast twitch muscle fibers, but in case a patient is very fatigable, for example, an ALS patient, you might want to tone that down. So I could go down to 35 pulses per second as I'm doing now. Pressing on the check mark will save that. So now all these settings are saved. And then I have here the work-rest settings. Remember, I'm in co-contract mode. So whatever I set here is going to determine how long every channel is going to work and how long every channel is going to rest. The work time can be set anywhere between 1 and 99 seconds. Of course, almost nobody is going to set the work time at 99 seconds, but I could have it, for example, with a Mendelssohn maneuver, where I say to the patient, okay, you're going to feel the current. When you feel the current, swallow and hold your complex up high, hold and hold and hold and hold, and I could make it in session 1 3 seconds long, if the patient can deal with that, and then rest for 20 seconds. Or as the patient gets better, I could make that 5 seconds long and then rest, etc. So I'll be editing these work-rest periods according to my patient's status. It entirely depends on what they're able to do. The ramp time refers to how long does it take for the current to climb up to the set level and how long will it take to go down. The longer I make that time, the easier it feels to the patient. It feels very gradual. However, it's sometimes not very functional to keep it very long. When you want the stimulation, you want it now. So you could put it down as low as 0 seconds. So all of these settings can be set in co-contract mode. If I set it in reciprocal mode, I have many of these same settings: phase duration, frequency. I also have the work time. However, it's a little bit different here. Remember, in reciprocal, it's first channel 1 and 2, or channel 1 and 3, and then channel 2 and 4 come in when channel 1 and 3 go away. So it's first the one, then the other. So there's a sequence. You can set the timing of both of these. So you could have the first 2 channels work for 4 seconds, and the other 2 channels work only for 2 seconds if you wanted to, or 1 second, whatever you wanted. So you have settings right here on the screen that are individual for both these pairs of electrodes. And you can set different on times. After you've done that, you accept that, and you'll set the rest time. The rest time can be very short or it can be very long, and it follows the 2 periods of activity of both those channel groups. Once you've picked that, there's one more setting that is very unique, and we think that this is going to be very useful for the dysphagia clinician, and that is the delay time. It is necessary sometimes to have the top 2 channels, for example, work, and before they finish, have the bottom 2 channel join the effort, which is really very physiological. This is how a person swallows. You're working in the mouth, sending the bolus back, and eventually, once the bolus is here in the pharynx, the mouth still contracts to keep it all nice and tight and closed, while the throat works to move it down. So this, what I just described, would be top 2 channels working for, say, 3 seconds, and as they are 1 second into it, channels 2 and 4 will jump in, and they will work for 2 seconds. At the end, they both finish together, and then there's a mandatory rest break. So you will set that up with a delay time, and when you press delay, you will get a setting that can go from -10 to +10. It can go up and down. If I have a minus value, I will creep into the stim time of the first 2 channels. If I have a positive value, I have a delay time. So there's a break in between the 2 activity levels. More about that particular topic in some of the application videos. So that is for reciprocal, and then in continuous, of course, you have none of these rest work periods to set because it's just that, it's continuous. Okay, so that is VMS. The other two features on the device are surface EMG biofeedback just by itself and surface EMG triggered stimulation. Many of the features we just discussed will come back in this. One of the most powerful features probably of this device is just biofeedback. Surface EMG biofeedback is the concept where electrodes on the skin over the muscles that are needing to be monitored are capturing the electrical activity of those muscles. The electrical activity is displayed on the screen as a little line or as a bar, and that activity becomes feedback for the patient to give an indication of how hard he's working. The clinician, of course, can then tell the patient, "You're not working hard enough, come on, work harder." The interesting dynamic is that the patient very quickly picks up on what is going on and encourages himself. That's the power of EMG biofeedback. To get there, you press EMG and you select either channel 1 or channel 2 or both. You can work with either one. You will hear a little noise. The noise is an indication to the patient how far he is from the goal, so how hard he must work. You can set that volume at a different level. You can set it very soft like it is now, or you can make it go away altogether. For now, for the sake of this video, I'll make it go away so that it's not in the way. Now, here we've got various buttons that will tell us where to go. The electrode button gives me some indication as to where I might want to put electrodes. There's always going to be, in EMG biofeedback, a reference electrode, a third electrode. If you remember, there is at the top the channel buttons that allow, or the channel ports that allow the lead wires to be connected, and there's a reference electrode. The reference electrode is required by the machine in order to be able to capture the right signal without noise. It filters out the noise. So always remember, you'll have the two electrodes over the muscle that you're interested in, and then you'll have a reference electrode somewhere else. An easy spot would be here at the base of the neck. Just plop it down there and ignore it. It is not active. Okay, let's go back so we get back to the screen for the other settings. So the volume we've had here, the target max and the capture target are important buttons. These are the buttons you're going to use in order to set that threshold. Right now, if you look on this bar, the threshold is set at 61 microvolts. That means right now the activity level, even though we're not connected, but you can imagine the activity level in this muscle is only 1 microvolt. So the muscle is just relaxed, doing nothing. If I ask this patient to actually contract, I would ask him, come on, move, try as hard as you can to move towards this threshold. And these bars would climb until they reach this threshold, which is 61 microvolts. If that was too easy for this patient in other words, and he's right there, it's not a challenge. So now I want to increase it or decrease it. There's different ways that I can do that. So first of all, let's pick the first method, target max. If I press capture target, as I do now, 2 buttons appear. Begin my capture and end it. If I say begin capture, I am now asking the patient, come on, put in a couple of good swallows. Swallow, swallow again, swallow hard, try as hard as you can. All these efforts are captured by the device. When you're happy that you have recorded a couple of good swallows, you press end capture. Now I have over here a screen that says, do you want to increase this further? Do you want this maximum effort that the machine captured to be the goal for the treatment, or do you want to make it a bit harder? And then you would increase it or decrease it depending on what you want to achieve. And then you just say, let's accept that. Now, for this video, we have no patient connected, so I don't have a real value. So just for argument's sake, I'm going to show you the second method, the manual method. I can press this target, and now it's target manual. Clicking on capture target will now allow me to increase or decrease the target just with these arrows. So now I have selected a value of 60 microvolts right here as the target, and I say accept. So we're set with the target, we are ready to go. Treatment can start right here. At this point, I can say to the patient, come on, try, take a swallow, try hard, reach that threshold. There's another view, though, that is more encouraging to patients, and that is trace view. Pressing trace view will bring up this view. In this view, you can actually see the activity down here of the muscle. And as the patient swallows, it will spike up and exceed the threshold, hopefully, and then come down again. It is a magical thing when you see the patient starting to get it and starting to connect with what the muscles are actually doing. At that point, the clinician can just step back and let it all happen. One very nice feature is that it's possible to directly on the screen, by touching it, increase or decrease the threshold even further. You can go up, for example, the patient is now getting it so well that this is becoming too easy for him. So you just touch, increase, and you're done. The threshold has just been raised. Or another possibility is the patient has tried a couple of times and what worked in the beginning doesn't work anymore. He's too tired. So now you can easily decrease the threshold to still make it meaningful for him, because there's nothing as discouraging for a patient than failing every time he tries. So it's very easy to do this. One important last point is that none of this activity is actually recorded until I press start pause. I've just done that, and you've noticed that this number, the activity level, is now represented in red font. That means recording is active. So as of this moment that I press start until the moment that I press stop, everything is being recorded inside of this machine. Now, when I'm done, when I'm finished, I press stop. It asks me, do you want us to really stop? Are you serious about this? You say yes, confirm. And now I have the treatment summary screen appear. This is another big difference from the handheld VitalStim. There's much, much more data that is recorded inside and actually reported back. We won't go through each and every individual setting and what that means. For that, refer to the instructions for use, the user manual. It gives you an exact explanation of each one. Our recommendation is for anybody being treated with EMG, for the clinician to report at least one or two key parameters to indicate progress. And you'll find numerous ones that you can use for that purpose. Okay, the other thing that you can see here at the bottom of the summary screen is you could export this data to the PC. This data exporting function will work wirelessly via Bluetooth connection. All you need to do is have the software loaded on your computer, on your PC, and this device set up to be recognized by the PC, which is just an initial setup procedure. Once you've set that up, you can send it there and manipulate it there and send it to your medical record. So let's go back to the home screen and show you the last feature. This is EMG triggered stimulation. EMG triggered stimulation is essentially the same as biofeedback. However, the biofeedback now serves as a trigger to make the machine stimulate those muscles. So let me illustrate an example. For example, I could have two electrodes right here at the base of the tongue indicating how hard the patient is trying to swallow or that he is starting a swallow. And then another two electrodes right down here over the thyroid who will start stimulating when the patient has started. So I need to set up the machine to record that a swallow has started with my biofeedback, and then set up the stimulation so that it's a meaningful contraction of that muscle. This is the same description or the same setup that was done in a study by Lee Laminate, published in 2002. Very effective, very impactful treatment setup. So for that, to set it up like that, I'll illustrate it. Press on the gear icon. I select my channel 1, which let's imagine is channel right here on the base of the tongue. I will select my target to be maximal again, and I will capture the target until I have a reasonable target. Right now, I'm not going to go through these steps because they are the same as what we've just done. My added step now is to start editing the stim part. When I press that button, it suggests or offers me to set a phase duration and a frequency, ramp time, amount of stimulation time, when it starts stimulating, how long, so let's leave that at 2 seconds, and then a mandatory relaxation time in which the stimulation will not get triggered. Then I press start. and it asks me, okay, go ahead, increase the intensity in the channels. I now, since channel 1 is my triggering channel, channel 2 is going to be my stimulation channel on my thyroid. I will increase the intensity up until I get a contraction and then press start. At that point, the machine will just guide the user through the process, indicating, okay, now relax with a big relax button. Now put in an effort, try and swallow. And when the trigger has been reached, the machine will say, come on, hold, 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 and eventually relax. This whole setting, or this whole setup, is a very effective way of helping patients with swallowing disorders, especially stroke patients, to help them initiate the swallow. People with cortical strokes often have trouble initiating things. This helps them to make those neural connections again. So, quickly, 2 last features is the data feature. In this data section is where you can access previously stored data. That would be data that is stored on this card right here on the side that I pointed out earlier. We don't have a card inserted now, so we won't do that. But here in the resources section, you have a section with videos, and in those videos are 4 commonly used exercises that you can use to teach your patient how to do a certain exercise, like the Masako or the Mendelssohn. Or if I go back, I have the anatomical library, and the anatomical library shows me a whole number of images based on anatomy, pathology, or treatment. Patient education becomes much easier when I do that. So now I've clicked on anatomy, and let's say I want to show this patient his or her brainstem, and it pulls up an image, an anatomical image, where I can point to the brainstem and I can indicate what may have gone wrong with this patient. And that is it, and we hope you enjoyed this tutorial on the new features of the VitalStim Plus. Thank you.